upon a time, in a land not so far away, Gastonia, North Carolina, a baby girl, that would be me, was born in 1962 in Gastonia, North Carolina. I said that. When I was 5, my family moved to Florida, and not too long after moving there, we became fast friends with another family. And the daughter in that family, her name was also Cindy, and we became best friends almost immediately. One of the most vivid memories I have of Cindy and her family is going to their house and finding out they had horses. I was so in awe of those beautiful creatures, and I knew that I just needed to get closer to them. Not only did I get closer to them, but I was allowed to ride one. That was it for me. I was hooked. I knew that I needed one of those for myself, and I began to dream about the day that would come when I would have one of those of my very own that I could call my very own horse. I was just so excited about those horses. As time went by, I visited my best friend Cindy as often as I could and rode the horses as often as I could. I told my parents, please, 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 you've got to get me a horse. Well, they got me a puppy. That was okay. I loved that puppy, but I still wanted to have a horse. Eventually I got a kitten, and then 2 more dogs, and then another puppy, and then another puppy. But I still wanted that horse. I needed to have a horse. I would constantly daydream about it. I was obsessed. I would run around in a horse-like manner, you know, like kids do this. I'd sit on tree branches, pretend I was riding a horse. All the time, I was daydreaming about horses and playing horse, so to speak. A few years passed, and still I had no horse of my own. By now, I was in middle school. After school one day, I went home with a friend of mine. We got there, and sitting in her front yard, standing in the front yard, horses don't usually sit down, was a horse. It was her big sister's horse. Well, you can imagine, I was just, couldn't wait to go get close to this horse. So we were petting the horse and talking, and it came out, her sister said, I'm going to have to sell Toby. I'm not going to have her very much longer. And I said, what? You're going to have to do what? This horse is for sale. So the rest of that afternoon was just a complete blur. I got home and I rushed through my front door and I saw my dad right away. I said, Daddy, 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 I hope you had a great day. He says, well, I did, but why are you so interested in whether or not I had a great day? And I said, because I want you to be in the best mood possible because of what I'm about to tell you. I proceeded to explain the situation about Toby, the name of the horse. And surprisingly, he didn't say no. He said he'd talk to my mom and think about it. A few days later, my dad surprisingly agreed to go see Toby. He said he'd talked to my best friend Cindy's dad, who said, if we got a horse, we could keep it there. So the day came when we went to see Toby. It was late in the afternoon, and to my surprise, my dad actually liked Toby, and he made a deal right then and there to buy that horse for me. He was my best friend ever at that moment. We were arranging transportation to get Toby to her new home. And it came to me and I said, wait a minute, we're only about 5 miles away, let me just ride her home. So that's what we did. We saddled her up. I got on, and I'm sitting there, and my dad says, okay, I'll see you out at the barn when you get there. So I'm riding Toby down the road, just as proud as I can be. We're trotting along. We're about halfway there, and she stops. So I'm like, So I give her a little kick. She just stands there. Kick her a little harder. Come on, let's go. Oh, you know, it's going to get dark. She still stands there. So I'm like, what's going on? So I'm looking around. Maybe she has to go to the bathroom. No, nothing's going on back there. So I hop off, and I'm pulling, and I'm tugging the reins as hard as I possibly can. And she's just standing there. You know, of course, I'm pulling her head, so her head's sticking out. She's standing there like, You ain't gonna make me budge if I don't want to. So at this point, I wasn't so proud at this point, and I was getting really upset. So I got back on her. I kicked her as hard as I could, and I said, "You better go home." So she said, "Okay, fine." So she walked slow. And we finally got there. It was pitch dark outside. My dad's standing at the car going, "What took you so long?" And I just said, "I don't want to talk about it." But we got there. And I don't know how much time had passed. Who knows? It should have been probably 20 minutes. It was probably more like an hour and a half. But that was the beginning of several great years with my horse, Toby. Eventually I got busy. I went to high school, graduated high school. Needless to say, I had to sell Toby because I was just not having the time for her. Life went on. I went on to ride horses whenever I could. Had a great time, loved it. Fast forward, we moved to Hillsborough with my husband, my family, my 2 kids. And I became acquainted with someone who became a good friend, and he had a horse. So I went out and rode his horse, and I was riding around the countryside, and there it was again, that itch, that obsession. I had to have one. A little over 6 years ago, we moved to a little farm in Efland, and I eventually got another horse, and then another, and then another. Now I have 3, and even after many bumps and bruises and a couple of serious injuries, and even though my life sometimes gets so busy it doesn't feel like my own life, I will always, at least as long as I'm able to, be a horse owner.